You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to OklahomaHOF on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them. Do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are at OSU Tulsa at the Thunderbird Drone Festival, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jamey Jacob. Sir, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to do it.
Yeah. So for people who don't know about maybe this festival, the drone industry, and the collaboration between you guys, this drone festival started in Woodward, and now it's at OSU Tulsa, which is a great facility. And I think people listening know how, or maybe they don't, the aerospace industry is the second largest industry in Oklahoma, and it's a huge deal. And the drone space is a huge part of that.
Yeah, it is. And so we've been involved in this now for almost 25 years at OSU. We have one of the oldest undergraduate drone programs in the country, and we've really built upon that to be able to leverage that in the industry across the state. And our capability to support and partner with the Thunderbird Drone Festival, bring them to Tulsa, you'll be able to expand and give them a better statewide presence. It's just really part of our mission.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into that, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about your background, your Oklahoma story. I see you go to the OSU website and it comes up as engineering, architecture, and technology. So as much as aerospace and drones seems like a passion of yours. There's a backstory to this. How do we get here?
Yeah, there is. And so I actually got interested in aerospace as a high school student. Okay. And my dream was really to kind of focus on astrophysics more than anything else. And I was going to build space telescopes, and it was my passion at the time. But as an undergraduate student, I got involved in working on remote control aircraft. Right? We didn't call them drones at the time, or even uncrewed aircraft systems. It was remote control systems, and we were developing an aircraft for weather applications, severe storms. It's called a tornado chaser. Built the plane, flew it a couple times, but the technology wasn't ready yet. The idea was there, but not the technology. And that got my passion really stoked for these autonomous systems. Personally, I found out I'm not really that good of a pilot. but I was a good programmer.
Okay.
And you start thinking about, okay, how can I use computers to do the flying for me? And we fast forward, now 30, 40 years later, and the technology has finally caught up with this concept. And now we have drones that anybody can go out and fly.
Yeah. That's the amazing thing, right? That this technology now, we got the drone races here, these tiny little FPV drones that are flying around, and then you got the massive unmanned that looks like aircraft that are bigger than some planes. It's amazing.
Things that would have cost six figures 20 years ago are now hundreds of dollars in terms of that technology. And so it's ubiquitous. Drones are going to be one of those tools, applications that we haven't even thought about yet, but everyone's going to have one. It's just going to be part of their daily life. Applications for first responders for delivery, everything from medicine and packages to the burritos and tacos.
Yeah. Well, so what gets you into astrology from a young age then, and wanting to build telescopes and look up at the stars?
Well, be careful. So you said astrology.
Astrology, my bad.
Yeah. Astronomy and astrophysics.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, always been interested in the universe, right? Just looking out in the night sky.
Yeah.
And so, that I still have a passion for it, and so I kind of do that on the side and teach some courses, related to physics of science fiction, and kind of bring my love for robotics, autonomy, and the universe all into one. But this, to be honest, is part of our land grant mission as a university is to help the public good. This is the type of technology that we can get in the hands of groups like first responders, firemen, police officers, meteorologists to do better weather forecasting, but also entrepreneurs. Teach young students about this technology, give them the capabilities, and let them come up with their own ideas about how they turn that into a business. Really, our mission, is to help innovate. So my other, I'm a professor in aerospace engineering, but my other job is the executive director for the Oklahoma Aerospace Institute for research and education. So we're really focused on how do we leverage all these opportunities in the aerospace ecosphere to be able to support innovation and entrepreneurship across the state.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless, right? And the sectors that drones can help in are endless as well. You talk about just safety, and it's no secret that we have pretty rough weather systems here and weather storms. But you look at all the stuff going around the world, and just to help people be safe, and then also you look at the entrepreneurship world. You look at hunting. Whatever it is, like sitting down and putting something in the air.
It was really exciting. And so, we've partnered with the Choctaw Nation many years ago to support. They have a national FAA test site down in the Choctaw Nation.
They have that strip, right?
Right. So,
don't we have a strip in Tulsa too?
We do. I'll talk about that in a minute as well. But we started working with them about a decade ago now. And the first test we did was to bait feral hog traps. Of all things, and that's like FAA said, hey, show us a practical application that folks can utilize these systems for, rather than driving your truck out to the back 40 and looking at it and saying, well, did deer come in and eat the bait? And I didn't catch any feral hogs. Can we use a drone to do that? It was exciting. One of the students that we had on the panel yesterday, we had a student day partnered with Oklahoma Department of Aeronautics and Aerospace, and they were talking about how they were using drones on their farm to search for feral hogs. And so, that's come full circle now, where now you have the capability where you can have a high school student have that technology, be able to put a camera on there and go search for feral hogs.
Yeah. Well, and also, a lot of farms are family, they're generational too, and the granddad is probably, or the great granddad or the grandmother, they don't want to fly a drone. The last thing they like the old school stuff, right? But then you've got the grandson who's like, it's like a really cool integration of technology into
bring in the precision agriculture and use this new technology. And two of the films that they highlighted yesterday that were in the top 3 of different categories were focused around farming.
Wow!
So one in Oklahoma and one in Ohio. So again, talks about shows how the technology can be used for everyday applications.
Why do you choose to get into to be a teacher, to be a professor, to give back and educate and add real value here versus, and I say real value, and you could take that plenty of different ways, but versus just go to the private sector? And because
well, I think
the aerospace industry is not, it's very lucrative to be in that sector as well. You look at
whether that's weapon systems or wars or whatever, energy and oil and gas. I mean,
well, you ask any teacher why they teach, and it's all about giving back. It's the passion of working with the students and looking at the next generation, because again, they're the future, and educating them, giving them the opportunities to do great things in the future. It's all for the public good.
Yeah, you born and raised in Tulsa?
Actually, Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, cool. But I had family here in Tulsa, so I spent a lot of formative years. Growing up here in the Tulsa region, but I consider myself an Oklahoman first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not going to ask you to rate both of the cities because that could get us down a rabbit hole that I'm sure you don't want to go down.
Well, I will say I spent a lot more time here in Tulsa than I do elsewhere.
Yeah, and where did you go to school to have this kind of love for teaching for Oklahoma State? Were you an Oklahoma State grad as well?
Actually, I got my degree in aerospace engineering from the other Oklahoma University. Then did my graduate work at University of California, Berkeley. Mm-hmm. Spent 10 years outside the state before I came back here, and I came back with the express intent to set up a UAS program.
Okay.
So this was in 2006, and we had been doing work primarily with NASA to develop robotic aircraft for Mars. How do you fly on Mars? And that was kind of bringing back that passion again, that interest that I had from the undergraduate level, developing this tornado chaser concept. Now how do we think about flying an aircraft on another planet? That's really the ultimate autonomy. You don't have the ability. You can't fly it remotely. It's 20 minutes one way for communication. So you don't have the opportunity to be able to pilot it. It has to be completely autonomous.
Yeah.
And that was a challenging problem. And so we were working on this in the early 2000s. And of course, 20 years later, now we have the first drone on Mars. And Jim Bridenstine was here talking about that yesterday with Ingenuity.
Yeah.
Flying an autonomous aircraft on another planet. So flying that drone. That's really the future of exploration, and it circles back, brings back my passion for things such as exploring the universe, so tying all that back in, and being able to be a part of that. Even if it's a small piece, it takes a huge village to be able to make this technology move forward.
Yeah, it's just it's your wildest dreams, right? You'd think, how do we, exploring our world is something that, I think we probably take for granted. Not a lot of us do enough of.
Yeah.
We don't travel enough. We don't, we just stay in our bubble. We might see a picture of Paris on Instagram and think, oh, that's good enough. You haven't been there and stood in front of the Eiffel Tower yourself. People don't seem to do that anymore because of maybe social media. But talking about going to another planet, flying something out there and really, saving lives too by doing it, and doing it in a much simple, I guess not simple, because it's definitely not simple. I did not expect you to say that's super fascinating to say that you're flying an unmanned vehicle to Mars.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And it was funny. 20 years ago, I was about 25 when we started on this. It was 1999. NASA was thinking, let's develop an aircraft and fly it in the centennial of the Wright brothers' flight. That would have been 2003, and they realized, wow, this problem is a lot harder than we thought. Just in terms of not just getting the aircraft there, but making it fly within that harsh environment, and of course, completely autonomous. Has to be very robust. The technology again had to catch up. And it was really the development of things, such as smartphones, that were able to shrink the microcontrollers, the computers, the gyros, the accelerometers, all the things that you need, both on a controller and on the aircraft itself, on a drone that we use today, that makes them cost efficient for people to be able to go out and buy as a consumer product now.
That's what's nuts, right? You've been in this business for a very long time, and like you said, you got kids now who are just getting this little thing for Christmas that they don't understand. This has been in the making for 30 years, and now you have this little tiny application you can fly around your house and kind of irritate the dog with. Yeah,
the drone that they hold in the palm of their hand now has more computing power than what it took to send Apollo to the moon.
Yeah. So, you speak a lot. You're a keynote speaker here. You're on a panel as well. You're doing all these, giving back, and teaching is a huge passion of yours. What do you wish people asked you if they get 30 minutes with you? Like, what are the questions that you wish you get to talk about more than asking you, are aliens real? What else is out there? What have you seen? What have you experienced? What obviously, you have your passions, but
so the Earth is round, right? We kind of start with that one.
There's
right?
no outer ice wall and a dome
there's
and no
not.
Truman Show situation.
So chemtrails aren't a real thing, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think and if we kind of take stuff in the news right now, and there are really two things that we're primarily focused on. One is the defense side. So, supporting, both the U.S. and Homeland Security, how do we help troops abroad? And then, how do we, help people here at home? And it could be something as simple as how do you keep a drone, whether malicious or not, away from an airport and, perhaps, posing a risk to manned aircraft flights, right? So passenger travel. Keeping the airspace safe, first and foremost, right? That's part of our mantra, right? We want to be able to do no harm when it comes to putting these new things into the air. But also then, looking at these other applications, what can you use, these systems for across the entire state? Working with the tribes. We talked about working with the Choctaw earlier. We're now working with the Osage Nation, helping set up applications and turning, their large land that they have access to, into a drone test facility, which the end goal is to provide capability for them to serve their population. So how do you develop these systems so that way you can, deliver regular or emergency medicine to indigenous and impoverished populations, elderly folks that may not be able to get out. So how do you use these things to make people's everyday lives better? That's really what it comes down to. And we'll be doing a demonstration next week with the Tulsa Fire Department as part of our Drones for First Response program. And this is all about, when you have the Tulsa Fire Department and rescuers, when they have an emergency call, the first thing that they need is situational awareness. How do they get eyes on a target? And it could be something that's benign. Someone calls in and says, I think someone, is drowning in the river. It's like, well, how do you get a drone out so that way you can see that and immediately know who do we need to send? Does it need to be fire, police, paramedics? And so that way you can really minimize your response time. So that demonstration is kind of the first step to be able to put this tool into the hands to help people at the end of the day. And we have a lot of great resources across the state. Part of my mission is to build collaborations. So, even though I'm with Oklahoma State University, we work really closely with our partners here in Tulsa, University of Tulsa. They have a fantastic cyber institute here, so that's a great relationship. Work with the University of Oklahoma. They have the world's leading meteorology program. So when we talk about severe weather applications, it's a no-brainer for us to be able to, couple our expertise in aerial robotics and drones with the cyber here at University of Tulsa, with weather at University of Oklahoma, to be able to essentially make Oklahoma the powerhouse that it should be.
Yeah, and I mean, weather systems are kind of a hot topic at the moment after the new Twister movie came out, and seeing all that, and there was a drone flying in that as well. Like to see in the movie, and they put that up. But just to have those applications, and like you said, to give, the meteorologists or just people, who are just watching in the newscast, kind of just giving them a warning, because the seconds matter in those situations too, don't they? And
it does.
Whether that's a hailstorm or whether that's like a really bad kind of situation, like I said, the seconds save lives at those times.
In the end, application will probably be a lot more pedantic. It's not going to be exciting than that. How do you just give the forecasters more data? At the end of the day, it comes down to, hey, can we provide more information into the models that tell us, okay, we're going to get something like floods, like we're seeing in North Carolina right now, to be able to give people a better heads up and warning. And then, use those systems after the fact. How do you find out where people are stranded within the mountains and get them, emergency aid? So, in another 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a really vastly different landscape. By providing these capabilities to a broad swath of folks.
And all these things are a lot cheaper than helicopters and pilots and, fuel and flight time. You put a drone in the air and you can really help some people in difficult areas to get to, too, right? That maybe, manned flight can't get to.
Exactly.
what else excites you about, I think we touched on a little bit about the test space that we have in Tulsa, right? It's quite a long rectangle strip from what I understand.
Well, so we have a facility called Skyway Range, and it's actually building upon the Osage Nation's Skyway 36.
Okay.
And this is part of our project that's being funded by the EDA, working with Tulsa Innovation Laboratory, which is really focused around, hey, how do you find these unique areas that we already have capabilities in and leverage these collaborations? So this is really focused around what we call beyond visual line of sight. The big problem that we have right now is not that we can't fly drones everywhere. We can do that pretty easily. We can program a drone to essentially fly as far as we want to using the GPS information. The thing it can't do is look around it. It doesn't have eyes in the sky that gives it the capability that a piloted aircraft would to say, oh, there's another aircraft over there. So it's about avoiding other aircraft. So this beyond visual line of sight capability, how do we use this additional information to make sure that we're keeping the airspace safe first and foremost? So do no harm is our mantra, to be able to make sure that as we're putting these systems into the airspace, one, they're unobtrusive, so you don't hear them, right? They're not causing an annoyance, not buzzing over your house. They're keeping your personal privacy, first and foremost, so that way, things aren't spying on you in your backyard. But at the same, most importantly, is keeping the airspace safe.
Okay.
Don't crash into, someone piloting a Cessna 172 somewhere, or, God forbid, an airline. So to do that, we need things such as radars, other sensors, electro-optical and infrared sensors that can map the airspace and say, oh, there's an aircraft over there, or there's a bird. Right? How do I avoid that when these aircraft are flying?
And to that point, then, if someone's listening, or maybe parents are listening, and their kid loves drones, and they think that maybe their kid has a career in this stuff. Touch a little bit on just like the future. We're teaching future kids to go into this industry. By kids coming out to the drone festival, kids coming to Tulsa, or however old they are, even older generation getting into it because they want to change in career. There's so much opportunity here that you see through every sector and every day, and we'd love to hear you talk a little bit about kind of what the future of the drone space looks like and aerospace looks like in regards to Oklahoma and the education here we have.
Yeah, and I always think of, drones are really just one microcosm and one segment of, the future autonomy. And, we could talk about AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? The capabilities now, really pushing a lot of information through these small processors to be able to make decisions. And at the end of the day, making our lives easier. And one of the things that we want to do from our education standpoint, workforce development, is get kids and other folks in the workforce. Again, we don't want to think this is a pipeline. It's not just K through 12 going out. It's older folks, non-traditional students, things that want to have a career change. Like, how do we get them upskilled, reskilled, so that way they can have these new capabilities to make them part of this modern workforce as well. Programming, mechatronics, being able to use these technologies, really just to figure out new applications to current problems that we have, or new ways to solve some of those problems. So that's one of our focus. That's really what OSU Tulsa is all about. This particular campus is working with those non-traditional students to be able to get them prepared for next generation technology. So OSU has recently reorganized our multi-campus system under the Polytech brand, so that way we have an ability really to do what we do really well already. Hands-on experiential learning, and be able to focus each one of these campuses, Tulsa, Okmulgee, Oklahoma City, and of course going back to the mothership in Stillwater, to provide these unique learning and educational opportunities for students.
What's finishing up, what is you've been in this industry and seen it from sending things to NASA to the little tiny kind of FPV drones we have. You've seen it of all scales, through safety, through military, whatever it is that the drone can be used for. What's some of your personal highlights? If someone were to wave the wand today and say that you've done enough in this industry, you don't get to do it again, what are the points that you look back
that's
on?
a hard, it's a in this on a really hard
question.
It is it's a
I mean, just maybe it's just personal that maybe someone else would think that it's not a big deal, but to you it is. I mean, is there any personal things that stand out from from the childhood dreams that you have to where you're at now?
But I think, if I had to go back and look and say, where do we move the needle? It's really on this ability to, use drones for better weather forecasting, because we're doing that now. We just had a huge event here in Tulsa where we had 50 different participants from across the world, from as far away as Finland, come here and operate drones within the Tulsa region, get data to see, does this work? If we get this information, if we fly these drones up to 5,000 feet and pipeline that back into the National Weather Service, does that improve our forecasting? All the way from, hey, do I have a better accuracy on my temperature prediction for tomorrow, or whether it's going to rain here in this location versus a block away, to, are we going to see tornadoes? And that's exciting, because this is something that's going to impact everyone in the world. And at some point in the future, drones, they're just going to fly. We won't even notice them. They're going to get this data. They're going to send it into the weather forecast. You'll be able to pull that up on your app and say, oh, look, so now I have better information about, whether I need to take that umbrella or not to work. Or, do I need to worry? Do I have to go to Brahms and get milk today? So I think that is probably the thing that's, going to have the most impact globally. And, when we look at the impact of things such as, climate change and, how that's going to change how we have to prepare and interact with weather in the world, that's probably going to be the most impactful.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, serve our mission at the end of the day. I always harp upon land grant. We're here to serve the state.
Yeah.
Whether it's from energy to farming, the other top three industries, they rely so much on that information about the weather.
Yeah. Let's talk about you going to NASA, because I don't think I've spoken to anybody that's ever gone to NASA and worked, probably in the detail that you have. So what was that experience like? And how, you're among the best in the world at what you do, and you are one of the best in the world at what you do, and you're around, it's my.
But I always like to say we have one of the best teams in the world, right? Because it really is a team effort, and it's my team that makes all the magic happen. But working with NASA, I think that's actually better than working at NASA.
Yeah, sure.
So if you kind of think about the implications of that, because it gives me the ability to do lots of different things with NASA. Whether it's from drones to urban air mobility, looking at now drones for people movers, urban air taxis, like this kind of fifth element concept, to even some of these space projects, you get to have students working on designs for potential moon habitats.
Yeah.
That's really exciting to be able to do that. I think the most exciting thing we ever did with NASA is getting the ability to fly in a weightless environment on board what NASA calls the weightless wonder, but what everyone else calls the vomit comet, where you get to spend this time in a weightless, just like you being on the International Space Station.
Have you been in it?
Yeah, so that was, again, probably the most exciting thing I've ever done, the most memorable experience, to be able to spend the day on board that aircraft, getting to experience zero gravity. And we're doing that for various experiments, to design things that you can't design anywhere else, that you have to have this weightless environment to test them and to see if they work.
How how do you explain that weightless feeling?
It's hard. It's you can.
Is it the feeling of
best
falling?
way? No, it's the feeling of swimming, but without the resistance of the water.
Okay.
Because you're floating.
Yeah.
And you're just floating there, and you don't have this sensation of falling.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm free from the gravity of the world that ties me, binds me to the earth.
Yeah.
So it's hard to explain. It's one of those things that they actually caution you. And the trainers, the NASA staff comes in and says, look, this may be the only time you ever get to experience this. So everyone's going to be focused on their work and their experiment and making sure you're getting the data. Take time, just to spend a little bit looking around and going, wow, this is really cool.
That's special.
Where else are you going to be able to get to do this type of activity? And, the fact that we get to bring students in, it gives them a life-changing experience to be able to say, look, whether you work for NASA or not, this type of experience is really limited now to astronauts and billionaires, right? So, take that in, right? And how does that change how you look at the world and really solve problems?
Yeah, like that's kind of the reoccurring theme here, right? Is how do you take this application and solve problems and back to
what you said earlier about giving back and helping the next generation, or helping the current generation or the older generation, of just more data in a way that really serves you. Because we've got plenty of data coming at us that does mindless things. And just
exactly
keeps us,
right. Yeah.
Kind of makes us, maybe cures our boredom for a little bit. But so you're on a panel today. Is that what you're talking about?
I did my panel yesterday. So we actually have one of my colleagues,
Nice.
James Spencer, who's the Launchpad Center Director, really focused on entrepreneurship. How do we take this technology, put it in the hands of entrepreneurs to come up with new ideas that we haven't thought about yet?
Yeah.
It's exciting. David Zahn from NASA is actually one of our affiliate faculty teaching courses on advanced air mobility and aerospace architecture. Is our key speaker for today.
Okay.
It's a great event, Thunderbird Drone Festival. And we're honored to be able to support them and host it here. We look forward to doing it again next year as well. And this is just going to get bigger and better.
Yeah.
These fantastic videos. If people haven't had the opportunity, go to the Thunderbird Drone Festival website. You can see the video entries, not just from this year, but from previous years. They're mind-blowing how good they are.
They're incredible. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, sir, for coming in. Appreciate your time. Again, thankful that you have this partnership with the guys at Thunderbird Drone Festival. And people listening, I'll put the link to the website in the description so you can go check that out, and keep in touch, stay involved in the drone world, and hopefully we'll see you here next year.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.